Good evening. This is the Community Redevelopment Agency regular meeting. It is Tuesday, September 10th, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. Can you please call the roll?
Chair Llewellyn.
Here.
Vice Chair Odman.
Here.
Board Member Brandemart.
Here.
Board Member Harris.
Here.
Board Member James.
Here.
CRA Director Williams.
Here.
City Attorney Gugelman.
Here.
Thank you.
We have no citizen comments tonight. Is that correct? Okay. Administrative reports. Executive Director?
Okay, I do have an item that I'd like to present. It's not written on the report, but I'd like to introduce you to our newest employee at the patch, Mr. Amado Diaz. Could you please come forward? He started yesterday. He is a farm and market coordinator, and he'll just introduce himself really briefly.
Right. My name's Amado Diaz, and I'm happy to be with the Patch. I'm a master gardener in Broward County for 3 years, and I'm excited about working at the Patch and adding value to the Patch. Thank you.
Welcome.
Just want to highlight that he's a Dania Beach resident also.
Good.
Um,
Okay. Is that it? Okay. All right. No presentations. Consent agenda. Do we have any polls?
Poll number 3.
Any others?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 5.3.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, number 3. Should you read the resolution?
Sure. A resolution of the Board of Directors of the Community Redevelopment Agency, CRA, of the City of Dania Beach, Florida, adopting the final estimates of revenue and expenditures for the fiscal year commencing on October 1, 2019, and ending on September 30th, 2020, appropriating funds as may be needed or deemed necessary to defray all expenditures and liabilities of the CRA for such fiscal year, providing for conflicts, further providing for an effective date.
Board Member Harris?
I pulled this item because we got it kind of late, and since our budget hearing is tomorrow, I don't think we should be pulling any items or approving a budget till we have answers to all the questions that I have. Would you like me to start?
Well,
How do you want to do this?
I'm not, well, I don't know if this is the appropriate place to go through all the questions. I know we have a workshop tomorrow. We could actually address them at the workshop.
It's fine if you'd like to ask questions now. I can take questions.
Okay.
Okay? Go ahead.
Okay, page 5, down near the bottom, starting the list of the new projects and programs. What are they? Can they be added to the backup for this? On page 6, item number 21, the $2,590,000 for the Broward grant conversion. Has that been done, or where are we with that?
I actually had a meeting with Broward County today regarding the loan-to-grant conversion, and so we anticipate that they'll be sending us a letter before the end of the fiscal year regarding that. We have put into the budget debt service in the amount of $250,000 as a precaution if we do need to make any interest payment. So I literally had a meeting today.
Okay. So the answer is, we don't know yet.
Correct. It's listed
Okay.
under ongoing and
Okay.
proposed projects for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Okay. Number 25 on the same page, page 6. Complete architectural plans and permitting, but for what projects? That's not in there, so could we get some more backup on that?
The Fippen Waiters properties, those are the 5 parcels across from the Aldi supermarket.
Right.
It was indicated by the board that that would be the next set of parcels that we would investigate development on. So that, again, that's listed on ongoing and proposed projects for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Okay, because there was an additional parcel there so we could get 6. Do we know if we did anything with contacting the owner about getting that?
Yes, I have contacted the owner. The owner is willing to discuss the 6th parcel. However, we cannot guarantee that we will be able to secure that 6th
Right.
parcel. It's privately owned.
Okay. Page 7, in the bike sharing with the 2 locations. And also for the Pride events, there's a dollar amount attached to that. We never even talked about either one of those things before, and the cost of them.
There was an item on discussion a couple months back related to Pride events, and a dollar figure in that amount was approved by consensus by the board. So, yes, I'm sorry, what was the first thing you said? You mentioned?
Bike sharing.
Okay, bike sharing, we discussed it, and there was consensus to move forward with exploring bike sharing. I do have a meeting with Lime Bike scheduled for next week. So that's something that we've put in the budgets in anticipation that we may need some funding there.
But
if we-
$20,000 though, for bike sharing?
Correct. So the infrastructure costs for it are actually more. We're planning to partner with Dania Point and the casino to offset some of the costs so that our costs would be at a maximum $10,000 per docking station.
Wow.
But we're actually looking to go lower than that.
For how many bikes? Do we know?
So each station typically has between 13 and 15 bikes, but we can decide that as we get closer into the process.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on that? The 13 to 15 bikes, what size of a city is that? Are you talking about Fort Lauderdale, or are you talking about Hallandale
Well,
Beach?
they can customize the stations, so you can have more bikes or less bikes. So it's all dependent on the density. So we're looking to have it service Dania Point, and we know that there's going to be 1,000 residential units there. We also know that we have folks that want to ride to the beach and want to go to the casino. So 13 to 15 is sort of that starting point, but it could be more bikes than that if necessary.
So the 2 stations you're talking about are going to be Dania Point and what?
And the casino at Dania Beach, those are the 2 entities that have indicated that they would like to have a bike sharing station, at least one. Dania Point has actually said they might want to do 2. So,
Do we need to do Dania Points now, since there's no residential units there?
well, they're anticipating putting one in the parking garage and having one that services the retail area. So they'd like to move forward with the project. I'm not sure of what the timeline will be, but when I do meet with another bike sharing company, in addition to the one that I've already met with that services the beach, then we'll have a better idea of timeline. So this was put into the budget to anticipate any infrastructure costs that may come.
I'm sorry, Board Member Harris, go ahead.
Okay. On page 10, line number 389-9001, it's non-operating reappropriations of the fund balance. In 2017, 2018, there's no number there, but this year it's budgeted at $639,000, and the coming year, $450,000. Why is there no trend in the 4-year average, and why is the coming year so much lower than the previous year?
Okay, so reappropriated fund balance, that essentially is any unused resources that the CRA has at the end of the fiscal year, and you would just carry that forward, or it's called a carry forward to the next fiscal year. In the 2017-2018 budget, I had not been with the CRA with the creation of that budget, and so that year, that was actually my first year getting my feet wet and figuring out what we needed to expend. And so I was very cautious with the expenditures, and we were developing new programs at that time. So that is why we had that differentiation between the appropriated fund balance for the different fiscal years. So I hope that answers that.
Okay, and at the bottom of the same page, line 7110, debt service principal, what exactly is that for $250,000?
Okay, that's the amount that was referenced earlier for the loan to grant conversion. Should it be needed as a precautionary measure, we've put that into the budget.
Okay. Then on page 11, other sources, non-operating transfers from the CRA. If you go back to 2017 and then 2018, the numbers are all over the place. you go from 120,000 to 55,000 to 154,000 and then down to 102,000. Why the bounce in the numbers?
Okay, so this amount, essentially we have two divisions, the 106 division and the 112 division. 106 is for the CRA and like general administrative costs, and 112 is for the patch. So every year, when we look at the patch budget, we see how much we're going to transfer from the CRA division over to the patch division to balance the patch budget. So depending on the activity that we have in the patch for that year and the activity that we have in the CRA for that year, that'll help determine how much we are able to transfer over to the patch division, 112, from the 106 division, which is the CRA division.
Okay. And then on page 11 also, line 31-10, the professional services general. Again, looking at the numbers from the last 4 years that are here, 8,500, 72,000, 136,000, and then down to 18,000. What is the professional services does this refer to?
Okay, so the big differentiation there is because in the amended 2019 budget, we did receive grant funding from the USDA, and a lot of that is for professional services. So we have consultants, you may have met them before at the patch, Jamie Castoro and Natalia Earl. So any expenditures for professional services under the grant would fall into that account. That's why you don't see it reflected in this year's budget, because that grant hit for professional services last year. So it's a reimbursable grant, so any time that we expend funds that are qualified under the grant, then we would see an amendment. So later on in the next fiscal year, you'll see an amended budget that is going to show an even higher number of professional services there, because that's going to be grant funded. Okay. So that 18,500 is going to go up due to the grant providing funds for professional services.
Okay. Page 22, number 36990, miscellaneous revenues for the Seafood Festival. That's going to be, is that $125,000? Is that for the sponsorships or from the vendors for booths?
It's a combination, and this is a goal that we're setting for this fiscal year. The previous year was about $94,000. It's a combination of revenues from art vendors, food vendors, as well as sponsorships.
Okay. Page 24, line number 6342, infrastructure, CRA, landscaping enhancements.
Okay, so
Is that at the patch?
No. As you may recall, we had previously talked about doing the West Dania Beach Railway Approach Project, and in maybe the past 2 or 3 administrative reports, I'd indicated that we want to pause on that project while we figure out the city center site plan and how we're going to be approaching Brightline. So in lieu of moving forward with that project, which would have been a substantial cost, we just want to do a little bit of beautification and landscaping at that approach, because it's one of the major arteries into the CRA district.
Okay. On the same page, line 3142, professional services, CRA, redevelopment initiatives, $255,000. What exactly is that?
If you give me a moment to just pull out my detailed budget, most of that is likely the new projects and programs that have been discussed by the board at prior meetings. Okay, so in that account, that's where you'll have the bike sharing at $20,000. We have Dania After Dark 115th birthday, $10,000. Dania After Dark general production, $75,000, which was approved at the last CRA board meeting. Decorative crosswalk, $45,000. Garage mural project, $30,000. Holiday lighting expanded, $46,000. Pride events and sponsorships, $11,500. Super Bowl activity at Dania After Dark, 20,000, for a total of 255,750.
Okay. So that's just part of the question. So when we meet tomorrow, we can go over some of the others? I mean, rather than do it all right now, what do you want to do?
That was my initial suggestion, is that if I have questions too.
Okay.
My biggest question, my biggest concern is the fact that this is nearly $500,000 over budget, and there's a deficit. And that's a very big concern, because if it gets adopted, one, I don't think it's fiscally responsible to adopt a budget that's over budget. And two, if you are going to go to the city and ask the city to fund that money, if I'm not mistaken, is going to have to come out of reserves. So that's a big concern, and that's not where we should be using our reserves for. And I mean, I have a number of questions as well. Board Member Harris pulled it, so let him go first with it. But I mean, I honestly think, and I did check with finance on this about when we needed to adopt this, if we need to adopt it tonight, or if we can adopt it at a later date, and we can, I believe, before we adopt the city budget. Is that correct, Nikki? Okay. So, I mean, we could even have set up a special meeting just to come in to adopt it, once we've discussed everything in more detail and tried to figure out a way to balance the budget, because I personally am not comfortable with adopting a budget that's $500,000 in the red.
Well, one thing I do want to point out is that the CRA's budget allocation from general fund has remained the same for about 6 years, whereas most other functions of the city have grown with the growth in revenue with the city. So this is a budget that can be amended and approved as amended tonight if you so chose to do that. But you also have the option, if you would like to wait and have a special meeting, that's something that could be done as well. Now, this is not something that has not been done before. We have approved a budget in the past where there was a shortfall, and the CRA board decided to move forward with adopting the budget to account for the shortfall with additional funds from the city of Dania Beach. I do also want to point out that over the past 6 years, personnel costs have risen $125,000, and that's not reflected in the general fund allocation that was provided, as well as we have about $240,000 worth of new projects and programs, most of which have been discussed by the CRA board and passed by consensus in some way, shape, or form. So it is at your discretion.
And I understand that, but my concern is that whatever's been done in the past is irrelevant. Bottom line is that this is a $500,000 deficit, and that's a significant deficit. And it's not the responsible thing to do. I can't speak to what was done in the past. I'm not going to. And I don't know if it was $500,000. My guess is it wasn't. My guess is it was significantly less if it was over. And $125,000 is much different than $500,000. So I personally would feel more comfortable if we could address these issues in our workshop. That's what the workshop is for. I know Commissioner James has some more questions with regard to line items on the city budget. I also have some questions about some issues for the city budget. And I think maybe we can see if there's some way that maybe we can move some things around and maybe make some adjustments to this budget as well, and see where it goes, and maybe in the long run we end up saving some money for the whole thing. Let's see, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So, I mean, I guess I'm just a little confused. I have no objection if board members need more time, but over the last month, I've heard this. I heard, I need more time, I have questions, there's things I want to know. I must have met with CRA staff, CRA director 10 times now. I even knew the answers to some of your questions, which were very good and valid questions. But over the last month, I thought that was the expectation. I assumed everyone was meeting with the director to ask these questions and to have these, sort of protracted concepts explained and go line by line through the through the budget, which is a very smart and good thing to do, to find out, why does this cost so much? Why does that cost so much? I mean, in the city staff meeting, I did the same exact thing, asking, wait, why was this 18, then 72, then 100,000, and now it's 4,000? What's that about? I need that explained to me. So I guess I'm unclear why a month later I'm still hearing, I need more time. Like, what's everyone doing? I don't understand.
Board Member Brandon Marty?
I believe that my clock at home said that, and my computer said that this meeting starts at 5:30. Did it ever start? Let me tell you something, we're not even in here 19 minutes. 19 minutes, and already they want to transfer this over even to another meeting. So I guess y'all could go home, because our meeting really isn't starting. It's over in 18 minutes without any kind of answers. However, I think that Commissioner Harris, I'd like to hear the rest of your questions, and because she seems well prepared. She does, right? And I don't see anything wrong with continuing with Commissioner Harris's questions, if that's all right with the rest of the board. Since you also are indicating that you have a lot, save yours to another meeting. But 18 minutes and you want to end this already?
I'm not saying we have to.
Oh, I
I'm
don't
not saying
agree
we have to
with
end it.
that.
I'm not saying
Oh,
we have
no.
to end it. I'm just saying that let me just, I know you have your light on, and I'll call on you next. My thought on this is that because we have a workshop anyway to discuss the budget, discuss the city budget, and there might be some things that we can work on together, both with the city budget and the CRA budget, and maybe help each other in order to figure out a way to make this work. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done here, and I think it would be beneficial to have us all there working as a team and trying to put it together to discuss it. And just bringing up certain line items is helpful, but I think if we actually sit down and we discuss it and really work through it, to see what we can do so that we're not just adopting something and moving forward, especially, I mean, I'm sure that none of you, when you're doing your own budgets at home, if you find that you're over budget, you don't just go to savings and take it out. You try to figure out what you need to scale back on so that you're not going to necessarily have to spend that amount of money. And that's kind of what I'm looking to do here, but I think we could do it more as a team when we have everybody available to discuss everything at one time and see where changes are made. That's all. That's all I'm suggesting. Board Member James.
Yes, sorry. And with all of the thoughts, seeing that as though we are going to, it seems like the board wants to hold a separate meeting for this. I don't know if I would recommend us doing it all in the same meeting as our commission workshop, because I have a lot of questions, and unless we're going to be there for 4 hours, which I have not carved out in my schedule, I don't know if we will be able to go from, city back to CRA. So maybe we need to schedule a different day, and maybe we all, because I've sat with executive director, going line item by line item as well, a lot of times sent emails and have a lot of data. I don't know how many times you all have met with her, but I've met with her a lot of times, and I think that one thing that has that I discussed with her even last year was maybe because we did have a shortfall last year, but in perpetuity, to make sure that we fund them enough for personnel growth, because insurance rates go up. They get the same increase as the other employees get every year, but we're still giving them the same amount of money over the last 6 years. And it's still a lot of money that is under what would have been a TIF if they would have received a TIF. Significantly less of a budget. So if we're talking about a budget, and the things that she's calling out are things that we all have had consensus on. These aren't programs that just grew out of nowhere. These are programs and projects that we have sat, and each of these commissioners or whoever have brought these things up for item and discussion and asked for consensus that we move forward with these items. They can't continue to be moved forward with money unless we fund these projects. I did ask if she had a meeting with our finance director to see if it would be okay in if we have done this in the past, since Nikki has been here for a while, and she has attested to, yes, it is okay to take them out of your reserves. You either take them out of your reserves, or we fund the CRA at a higher level so they can do the job that we're paying them to do. And so those are my comments with it. But I will hope that, I know she has an open door policy, and if you have all of these questions, I'm sure if you had them yesterday or a week or 2 weeks before, she would have went through all of these questions that you all have with her, as she has done with me.
Well, I don't think this is about having more time. What I said before was working together as a team, not just sitting one-on-one with somebody, but actually working as a group and workshopping this, just like we do with the city budget. So that's what my suggestion is, because like I said, I think there might be some different things that might come up. I'll give you an example of one of the things that I noticed that I think could possibly be cut out of the budget and save some money. There's a number of different places where you've got issues about social media. We just had a social media RFP that went out, and my understanding is a number of bids came in. If we're going to be using that and paying for that through the city, maybe that's something that doesn't need to go through CRA, and maybe it can go through that social media RFP and whoever the company is that we're hiring to do that, or the individual that we're hiring to do that. So that would be one way, for example, of combining the resources in a sense to see if there's a way to save some money on this budget and not have duplicate efforts. So that's an example, but I mean, but that's something that then we'd have to sit here and basically workshop it and discuss it with the city manager, with finance, with Raquel, with everybody, and try to get a sense of what we could do and what we couldn't do. So that was going to be my suggestion tonight, is that we just keep this for the workshop. I don't think it's going to take 4 hours. I don't know how many more questions you have on the city budget. Well, I think we have a lot, at least I know I have quite a few that I would like to go through as well, and I don't know that we're going to be able to get that done just now. So then we can have more than one workshop. That's fine.
Would it make sense, so being that it sounds like that some of the commissioners have a lot of different questions, I think it probably would make more sense, if we're going to carry this over to a workshop, to have 2 separate workshops. Does that make sense to you, Mayor?
Well, what I'd like to see is what we can get done tomorrow, and then if we do need another workshop, we schedule it at that time. We already have one scheduled tomorrow.
No, I understand.
And if we're hopeful and we get out of our meeting early enough tonight, maybe we can start the one tomorrow a little earlier than 10:30.
Right. I don't want to try and push something in there at the last minute. I think fair is fair. If you have questions and you chose to not meet with the director and you're coming into this a little bit blind, you should get the time that you need to ask the questions, however long that's going to take. And if other commissioners have questions they want to ask about the city budget, then I think it's fair to probably do two separate ones. What's that? I understand it's the purpose of the workshop, but I'm saying instead of one workshop, have it 2 workshops. Right, that's all, so I'm in line with the mayor's suggestion, but she was saying to try and do it tomorrow and then set the time tomorrow if we need that.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If we just move forward with the one tomorrow, see where we get to. I mean, if it does seem like it's going to take more time, I mean, I'll do the best I can with my schedule. Nikki, when do we have to adopt it by specifically? Just want to make sure that we have time for that.
Your public hearing is going to be Thursday at 5:01 for the city, and since the CRA is a dependent district of the city itself, you do need to adopt the CRA budget, the proposed budget, prior to that, so we can incorporate it into the advertisement that goes out to the public for the final hearing.
That's night,
Thursday night.
Thursday night, this Thursday?
Right. Your first public hearing is Thursday night. Now, after you do that, you can still make budget amendments to either one of them.
Oh, okay, so we have we don't have to prove it immediately, we have to prove it by Thursday, so that really only gives us tomorrow as an option.
No, you'll have to call a special meeting, a special CRA meeting to adopt their budget.
Right, no, I understand, we would do the workshop
Prior,
and then.
right.
Can you do it? It doesn't matter what time, when you do it, after the workshop?
No, the workshop.
Public meeting.
The public meeting has to be
After 5.
advertised, but
Right, it has
it
to be
doesn't
5,
have a
right, right.
specific time frame. It's not like hours, which you have to hold after 5 o'clock. That one could be anytime during the day,
So it doesn't have to be at
as long as it's a
5:01?
special meeting.
And it would obviously be
The
brief if we're
CRA.
just going to be adopting one.
Right, right. It would probably be a very quick meeting if you've already come to a kind of a conclusion as to what you're going to do with their budget.
All
I think
right,
we would
well,
have a
what
better
say
idea.
you, colleagues? I'm pulling up my schedules here, and,
I don't either.
I'm sorry.
Actually, our executive director had hers on first.
I just wanted to point out that in the discussions of the budget, it might be best to separate the discussion of the CRA budget and the city budget, and it would not be my recommendation to commingle any funding for projects.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm sorry. What I'm saying is that if you have the whole team there might be some suggestions that can be made, and we can actually ask some questions. Like, for example, do all of these things necessarily need to stay under CRA, or can we maybe move something? Maybe there is more funding available in a different department within the city, that it makes more sense for that to be in that department, so that this way it saves you money. And if it's something that's less CRA related and more citywide related, for example.
So I'm open to taking any additional questions. We do have an hour. If that would be helpful to take more questions on the CRA budget tonight, it might be helpful to not have to go through that tomorrow. But as far as the social media goes, the CRA has actually a 3-year contract, of which we just completed 1 year with our social media consultant. So it could be the other way too, that the city may be able to utilize the CRA social media consultant if that's part of the discussion. But again, I would just want to make sure that we're not talking about commingling services, funding, anything like that. Just want to say that. But I'm
Never
open to any
suggest that.
additional questions if you still want to ask them this evening.
Board Member James?
I'll let the questions be asked. No.
Board Member Brandon Marty?
Bill, I already suggested that we let Bill finish his questions.
That's fine. If you want to, I don't.
I will make a motion to that we continue this at least until tomorrow, and then have a special meeting to approve the CRA budget. Is that possible?
It's just going to depend. The rest of my week is like pretty full, but we have an hour right now.
We still have the rest of the
We have
meeting to go
another
through,
meeting
too.
coming up, too.
In an hour.
There's still more agenda items.
Yeah, there's still more agenda items. So I made my motion.
Is there a second?
Can you repeat your motion, Board Member Harris?
I make a motion that we don't approve this tonight, that we just workshop it with finance and some other people before we move forward with it.
With this, okay, so, but the director just made the recommendation that we not have the 2 meetings together. So would,
No, she said commingle funds.
Right.
But we're one city. We are not separate. That's my issue. Because we're
Okay.
talking about this like it's a separate issue.
Director Williams, then I misunderstood. Did you say that you felt it would be better to have 2 separate meetings? I'm not talking about commingling funds, because obviously that's not a thing that we would be doing. So I'm just saying 2 separate meetings. Did you say that your recommendation is that would be ideal?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
I
so,
was just going to ask her why.
so-
That's all.
so I don't know if it needs to make, maybe it would need to be a second, a different motion to, if you
Well,
need
he has
more
a
time.
motion on the table. so-
Okay.
But let me just ask the question then, okay?
Yeah.
Why do you think that it should be 2 separate meetings? It's going to be the same people, correct?
Correct. I just want to make sure that we stay focused on the CRA's budget during the discussions. And yes, we are all a part of the city of Dania Beach. And I just want to make sure that it doesn't get convoluted with, several different topics. If we focus it on the CRA budget during a certain time, even if we wanted to ask some of those questions now and have a shorter meeting, if that was what the board wanted to do, a shorter additional meeting if that's what you wanted to do, I think it would be best, and based on the previous experience that I've had, even during our the travel policy workshop that the commission had, and, the CRA was kind of like tacked on into it, and it kind of became a little bit confused. And so I just want to make sure that, with topics that are so important to the CRA, that we just have our own time to have that discussion.
Okay, let me make a suggestion then. If we already have the workshop set up for tomorrow, that's a continuation of the workshop on the city budget. If we complete that first, and then we come back and we deal with the CRA budget after that, would that be something that we could do? And this way, it's not like it's being intermingled, it's not going to be all discussed at once.
I don't know what the notice period would have to be from the city clerk if we could schedule it to be afterward, and I don't know what your schedules are. I think that was part of the discussion that you all were
We don't
having.
know how long we're going to take tomorrow. I mean, if we don't get to it, then we'll set up another time. I don't think that's unreasonable. This is my concern. Some of the things some of the questions I have are going to be contingent upon issues with the city budget. So that's part of the reason why I'm trying to do it this way, because I think it makes more sense, because otherwise we're going to be going back and forth, and we're not going to be able to adopt anything. And I'd like to make sure that we get to do that timely, like we're supposed to. So, or we could do the CRA budget workshop first, and then go on to the city budget workshop. Either one. It doesn't have to, I'm not saying do it all at one time. I'm saying that we've already had the presentation done by finance for the city. And so it's just line item questions that are going to be gone through. And I have some general questions as well for the city budget. So I'm not quite sure how much time we have reserved for tomorrow, and if anybody would be willing to come earlier tomorrow. I mean, a reasonable notice is a few hours, I think. In most cases, it doesn't have to be realistically. I mean, I've seen it done before. I mean, if we're giving notice tonight, I mean, it's reasonable. Let's see. Already got you? Yes? Okay. Board Member James.
Sorry, before we even decide to have another workshop without finishing this, we would have to decide on when the special meeting would be, which would have to be before Thursday at 5 o'clock. And I don't know what everyone's schedule looks like, but
Could we do it right before the 5:01 meeting?
no, I pick my son up every day after school from the bus stop at 4:30,
Okay,
something
well.
like that, so.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it would be more than 15, 20 minutes.
It would depend on if we can even finish with the workshop tomorrow, because we have an hour and a half. So I'm sure all of us look at our schedules and we carve out things and we make time and we push things. I have a meeting before and I have a meeting afterwards. And that's not reasonable notice for me to give someone that I can no longer make the meeting in these types of circumstances. And so if we don't finish the city workshop, then we don't have time for the CRA workshop. And then we're already looking at Thursday, and now our hands are tied. What we could do is approve as amended, and whatever we decide that we don't want, you still don't have to have it. But to not have any safety net at all, you can approve as amended, and you can make whatever changes you want to make to it. It doesn't have to be approved as what was presented. You approve it as amended, and then you can have the workshops, however many workshops you want, and then approve that as amended, as we amend that. But it's going to be very difficult to see if we're going to have enough time to have these workshops. If I have a lot of questions, you have questions, and Bill has questions, and everyone else has questions just on the city's budget, and we don't have time for the CRA, you're going to force us to have a workshop and a special meeting in one day.
I'm sorry, I take issue with the forcing you to have a workshop. I mean, this is the responsibility that we have to make sure that we are balancing the budget
Yes,
for the city.
absolutely.
And it's not just the city, the CRA.
But it's
although a
forcing us today.
let me
I
just
was- but I
finish.
was already talking.
But I was speaking now, you had stopped and I was speaking. So
'Cause
if you'll
you
let me
cut me
finish
off.
I didn't cut you off. Let me finish my thought, please. if we are going to be fiscally responsible here, I think it's important that we all look at the fact that there is $500,000 in a deficit that needs to be addressed. And it's not something that can be addressed in 5 minutes. It's not something that can be addressed in a half an hour. It was something that we're going to need some time to figure out how it's going to be done, which is why, realistically, we should have had a workshop set up for this already, and it wasn't. So if we had had the workshop as scheduled, the continuation on the 3rd, after when the hurricane was supposed to be here, then we wouldn't be in this predicament. Unfortunately, things happen. So now here we are. And I think it's only fair, not only to those of us that have questions with regard to the line items on this particular budget, but also to the residents who are the ones who ultimately are paying for this. So we need to be as responsible as we can with their money and make sure that we are not spending money frivolously or in a way that it's not responsible as a whole. That's all. If you'd like to continue, go ahead.
Thank you. As I was saying, we do have a responsibility to be prepared when we come here.
Thank you.
We have that responsibility. We have the responsibility, especially for those who have been here, and this is not our first budget, to understand how this works. We understand that we've never had to have a CRA workshop. And if that's something that you want to start, I have no issue with that. But we've never had to have a CRA workshop. We've never had board members not meeting with the director and waiting until the meeting happens to have all of their questions. We haven't had that. And so when you say we have a responsibility, you're right. We do have a level of responsibility to be prepared for every meeting that we come to. And when I say being forced, I mean if we're not going to pass as amended, you are forcing the rest of our schedule for the next 48 hours because that wasn't in the plan before these 48 hours. So you are forcing people or these commissioners to go outside of the norm on whatever schedules that they have to come back and be unsure of dates and times that we are even going to meet. We don't even have 48 hours. We really only have tomorrow and then the next day before the 5 o'clock meeting. We have to already have had the special meeting and the workshop. So when I'm saying being reasonable and you're saying being reasonable to our residents deserve more than a few hours of a notice of a special meeting that they might have made arrangements to be able to come to. So we can talk about it all around the board. All I'm saying is if you all want to have a workshop, that's fine. And you all want to go line item by line item, I'm here for it. We can approve as amended and whatever changes that you may see fit. If you, Chair, if you come back with some recommendations or some suggestions that everyone agrees with, you can still change those things in the amended budget. That's what I'm saying.
Vice Chair?
Who has a motion?
Okay, so respectfully to my colleagues here, I want to stop going back and forth about who's best prepared for the meeting and how they prepared and if there should have been a workshop, if they should have made appointments. Let's deal with where we are now. I know that Commissioner Harris made a motion. I didn't hear a second. I've heard the suggestion from Commissioner James, which makes sense to me. How did you feel about that, Chair?
I would rather us try to workshop it first.
Do you see the point, though? And I see.
I do understand the point. The problem is that there's a lot of duplication in this.
That was the point. The one about the concern that our hands will be tied, that if we don't have enough time, that then we're forced into.
We have a deadline. We are aware of what the deadline is. We were elected to sit here and do our job. If it's a matter of we have to come in here at 8 o'clock at night one night and do it, I don't have a problem with that. But whatever the situation is, we need to try to get it done. And I think it's not really fair because clearly Board Member Harris has more questions. I know I have quite a few questions. I really do think that it would be beneficial to have the entire team available to workshop it, not to sit here and make assumptions about things.
But certainly you've heard us all say that we're here for the workshop. I look, there's
Right.
no one here that's not willing to workshop. There's no one here that's not willing to come on off times. There's nobody here who wants to shut down anyone's questions. There's nobody here who's not looking to be a fiscally responsible board member. Everyone gets the gold star for that. Fine. It's just deciding now, before the next meeting starts, what makes the most sense to do.
My concern is that if we adopt it as amended and then try to come back to workshop it and amend it afterwards, if we don't get the time to do that because we don't have the time to discuss it further. That's what my concern is, that if we go ahead and amend it as adopt it
Right.
as amended, then and somehow we don't get to those questions, and somehow we don't get, well, you're saying that, but I'm
Right,
also
right. No,
hearing
no.
already that we're not going to have time for another special meeting.
These are valid.
So that being the case, and that's a short meeting, that would be a 15, 20-minute meeting. So if we're not going to have time for that, I'm concerned that we're not going to have time to actually have a meeting to discuss what these issues are and ways that we can correct them. So I would rather play it safe and make sure that we have the time set aside, that we are going to go ahead and discuss these issues and see what we can do to balance this budget. To balance the budget. That's all I'm trying to do, as opposed to taking out $500,000 out of our reserves to cover these expenses. I would rather try to work it out somehow and see if there's a way that we can do that, take the time to do that, and then take a 15 minutes, 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever. Come in and do it and be done with it. But at least then it's done the right way and we've discussed it properly. That's what I'm concerned about.
Well, from what I'm hearing from everybody, both sides want to take the proper time to get it done correctly. It's just a matter of what you feel is more risky and is going to allow you the time you need to do what needs to be done. Director Williams, do you have any
I
suggestions?
was about to call on her. Thank you. Through the chair.
Look at that,
Thanks.
ESP.
Yeah.
Just listening to the discussion, Chair Llewellyn, if it is that the CRA board would reconvene at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning and spend 15 minutes, we could spend the 15 minutes now and get through some of the questions.
The 15
But, of course, whatever it is that the board would like to do, I'm ready and available. And I've been ready and available to discuss any line items, any budget items.
The 15 minutes, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the 15 minutes would be to finally adopt it before the budget. That's what I was talking about, not
so-
the actual workshopping and discussing it. I think it's going to take more time than we need here, because we still have additional items that are important that we need to discuss on this agenda.
Well, I guess for scheduling purposes, how long would you anticipate that the CRA budget workshop would be? Because I think the issue at hand is availability of the board to meet. So if it's not the 15 minutes, excuse me for interpreting it as such, but what is the estimated time that you think would be necessary?
I don't know how long Board Member Harris has. I don't know how long Board Member James has for her questions for the city. I'm estimating mine to be 45 minutes. It might be less.
Is there a second on your motion? No. Let's move on.
Well, no, if you were not going to second it, I was. So I was waiting to see if you were going to. No, I understand that, but Commissioner Harris or Board Member Harris had a motion on the table. I thought you were.
You wanted to call the vote for the motion?
We can.
Okay.
I will second it. Can you call the roll, please?
Board Member Brandemort,
No, because I don't understand what yous are doing.
Board Member Harris,
No.
No? It was your motion.
He already voted.
No, I'm
Repeat the
confused.
motion, Mr. Schneider.
I'm just confused.
No, I don't understand.
there was a motion to continue this item and workshop it with finance and have a special meeting to adopt the budget
Motion to
later.
consider, to reconsider.
Do you want to withdraw your motion?
No.
Okay. What is your vote?
My vote is yes, that we continue it.
That's a yes. Board Member James,
No.
Vice Mayor Odman. No. Chair Llewellyn.
Yes.
Motion fails 2-3.
Then my recommendation would be that we skip over this for now and we
Well, I
go
have
to the
my-
next item.
I have my light on.
Didn't see it. Board Member
I'm
James.
sorry. Yes, I would like to make a motion to adopt it as amended so that we can workshop and ask as many questions and make changes when we need to.
My question on that is, we need to ensure then that there is enough time to discuss these items, because I'm not going to have this happen where all these things are discussed. I mean, it's the same thing with the city budget. We all had time to sit down and discuss the city budget individually with everybody, and
And I did.
those issues could have been resolved. If that's not going to be the case, then the same thing applies to the CRA. It's no different. So,
That's my motion.
Second.
call the roll.
Board Member Brandemart.
Yes.
Hold on a second, I'm sorry. Finance Director needs to speak.
I need a clarification, what you mean by amended.
But, so that we can come back and amend the budget. Can't we adopt it,
Would the motion need to be just to adopt it?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion would be to adopt it, and then we'd be able to come and amend it at the workshop, or discuss it at the workshop and potentially have it amended and come back to adopt as amended.
Right now, what you're trying to do is adopt an unbalanced budget,
Right.
which you really can't do.
So with
okay, as amended, right now, if we give the allocation to the CRA, and
That's-
then we could amend it later if we don't want to do those things, if we go through all of these questions with everyone else. Can't that happen?
That's the clarification I'm
Okay,
looking for, but I
okay.
need you to say it, not me.
Okay.
Board Member Brandemar, did you want to?
So you're looking to adopt the budget by increasing the allocation?
Correct.
To the CRA.
Correct. And we can come back and amend it. I will workshop it
Okay.
to, you all want,
Can-
whatever.
I think Board Member Brandemar had a question of the lawyer, did you? It sounded like you did.
No, I asked you, what it was, Mayor, was I was thinking that since they didn't know the answer, he would.
Do you have
The
the
answer
answer
to
as well?
what?
To about whether you can amend it later, come back, change it, or whatever. That's what it sounds like you are all wanting here, is to be able to come back and change certain things in this.
You can always amend a budget after it's adopted.
All right, and now, but the mayor's concerned with, are we going to guarantee her enough time to do that? And I think that would be up to all of us to be sure that we do that in good faith, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be difficult.
You know what I
don't-
mean? It's in good faith that we would, right, what we would be doing. So, I agree with you.
Are we calling the roll, or
You have anything to
are
add?
we?
Yeah, call the roll.
No? Okay.
We did call.
No, we stopped. Oh. So the roll's been called?
Yeah.
So I'm not clear on the motion.
The motion is to adopt it with the allocation, and we can come back and amend it at any time.
Okay, very good. So that Board Member Brandemart was yes.
Yes.
Board Member Harris? No.
No.
Oh, you want to
Board
accept
Member
that like it
James?
is?
She hasn't, he's calling you for the roll.
Roll call.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Odman?
I don't think this addresses all the concerns, so no.
Chair Llewellyn?
No.
Motion fails 2-3.
So no.
So as I was saying before, my recommendation is, let's go on to the next set of items so we can get through the rest of this agenda. And then if we have time at the end and we want to come back and ask some more questions, and then we can address this once again, perhaps, and see what we're going to do. Is everybody in agreement with that?
If we get to 10 minutes before the thing, can we?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let's do that. I think.
Okay. So let's pause on this. Did you want to say something?
So we're revisiting the schedule for the workshop?
What we'll do is, we're going to continue this for right now, and move on to the next items. And then at the end of this, we will come back and see where we are and if we can come up with a new motion.
Okay.
Okay? Okay. Number 6 is proposals and bids. There's a resolution.
Resolution number 2019-CRA-021, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Dania Beach Community Redevelopment Agency, CRA, of the City of Dania Beach, Florida, authorizing the proper CRA officials to award a bid related to request for proposals RFP number CRA-19-002 to Standing Ovations LLC for production services for the 2020 Arts and Seafood Celebration, authorizing the proper CRA officials to negotiate an agreement in an amount not to exceed $40,000, providing for conflicts, further providing for effective date. Yep.
Does anybody have anything to say? Nothing?
I make a motion to approve 6.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes. Number 7 is discussion and possible action, garage mural project update. Do you have anything on that?
Well, the documentation provided was based on the request by the CRA board for additional information from the 2 artists that presented at the workshop that we had on August 20th. And so the budget and I believe all the elements that were requested have been included. And so the CRA is waiting on direction from the CRA board.
Anybody have any comments or questions? Board Member James?
I do. I looked at all of these again, and I looked at the budget that was presented, and that's the thing that stuck out to me. It was $20,000 to do both columns from one artist, and then like $80-something thousand to do both columns from the other artist. And so I know funding isn't the only mechanism, but that's something for us. I'm not sure if everyone was aware of that, so that's my discussion.
Vice Chair?
So I heard a weird noise. I was looking at the budget as well, and I spent more time looking at the different artists. Oh, I guess this isn't in here. I was very pleased with the artist Jackie. I felt her proposal was very well aligned with how her artistry turned out. But I kept coming back to 2 things. One, what I loved the most was the large Dania Beach postcard, and that's what brought me in. And then I realized that that's not what we're doing. We're not going to be doing that. And that was my, that was kind of the one that I liked the best. When I looked at PETA, and he put his little image and just to show you what it would look like for scale on the columns, I closed my eyes and I was able to envision it, and I was able to see it quite well working in what's an evolving energy and use of that space. Kind of the vibe of it now versus the vibe of what it's going to be in 5 years, I believe will be quite different. And I also took into account what the original request was, which was, this 3D kind of art, which is better represented by the artist PETA. That, along with the budget of it being less than half the cost for both of the columns, made, I don't know if it's a him or a her, made that artist the one that I feel we should go with at this time.
Anybody else? I still really like Jackie's. I think Jackie's is more representative of the city as a whole. I like PETA's for maybe some other areas, which we talked about last time, and I actually had a thought on that. Couple of thoughts on it. I know that we do the grants for the commercial buildings and the facades and all of that, and I'm wondering if that might be something that would be more appropriate in a situation like that. It's something that we could ask if somebody applies for a grant, if they'd be willing to do, hire an artist to do some sort of artistic rendering, or if there would be some way to include that somehow in the grant itself. I don't know if that's something that's allowed or something that we could do, but it's a thought. Can't hear me? It's a thought that maybe we could do that somehow through the grants that we do for the commercial facades, that maybe we could introduce this artist to some of the individuals the companies that are looking to have their commercial facades upgraded with the grants. I know that Jackie's is really expensive, and I was shocked at what her budget was when I saw it. I'm wondering, though, two things. We have the city center project, and one of the things that they're discussing in that project is adding floors to the garage, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm wondering if this might be something better held off until we find out exactly where that negotiation goes, because I know there's negotiations that are going to be going on with that. My other thought is, well, sponsorships, if there's any way that we could get some sponsorships to help defray some of the costs. And the last thought on it was, my understanding is that we do have an art in public places ordinance that's supposed to be coming up soon. And this might be something that would be appropriate to work with, or if we have somebody coming in that is a new developer, a developer that wants to put something up, maybe include this as one of the projects that we would ask them to pay for, or to go, or to have it going into the fund, and then the fund pays for it, and maybe it's, right. So however, I mean, I don't know all the details of it because I haven't seen it yet, but if it's going to go into a fund, and then maybe we could use that money to defray some of the cost, or to pay for it at that point, I think that might be a way to reduce the overall cost. Plus, I'm assuming this is also her jumping off point, and not necessarily where she has to be for her budget. This is more of a negotiation. Usually everything is. So if that's the case, then maybe we can get that number reduced. I just really, although I like PETA's, I just don't know that it's the best style for the garage, because it's right in the center of the city, and it's a stark difference from a lot of the things that we see around. It's much more modern, much more progressive. And like I said, I like it, but I just don't know if it's the right place for it. I tend to like Jackie's better still. I just would like to find a way to defray the cost of it, since our budget's very, very high. So those are just my thoughts. Let's see, who's next? Board Member Brandon Marty.
I, too, looked at all of these, and I am on the same wavelength with you there, Mayor. I think that these from Jackie are a way better fit for the surrounding area that they would be in. I still don't think that we're ready for this 3D art. I really don't. And I love the postcard thing that came right up right away. I thought this was sensational compared to this 3D. It just don't seem like it fits in. Now, if you get another two buildings with something that modern on it, we'll then come back and talk. But no, I like Jacqueline's pictures much better than fit our city. And especially now we're going out with that new thing about nicknaming. We better make sure that everything fits together and gels together. So I'd rather wait a long time.
Board Member Harris.
No, I was just going to reiterate that Jackie was the selection made by the CAC. And, the CAC that we put together and tasked them with selecting an artist, and they chose Jackie, so I just want to put that on the record.
I do too.
So, and then you've also budgeted $30,000 for this project?
Yes, that's correct. I know that one of the main concerns about doing the eastern wall was not only the city center project, but also the cost. And so, the most budget conscious is team number 2, with PETA coming in at less than half of the amount of team number 1. And as far as the city center project is concerned, the proposal is to add stories to the parking garage, and that would happen as part of one of the phases for the overall project. It would not prevent you from moving forward with the mural project if you so chose, and whatever addition would have to fall in line with whatever artistic rendering is already in existence, or if at that point you'd want to have the artist come back and tie into it, or just leave those 2 stories with a color that blends or coordinates. That would be up to you. As far as sponsorships go, yes, that is something that we would like to take a look at. Of course, it would be more feasible to offset the cost for the cheaper proposal rather than the larger one. But of course, it could be done for either one that based on who you decided on, if you decide. The Art in Public Places ordinance, I would anticipate, and not seeing any of the language yet, but I would anticipate that anything that passes with site plan approval would then have that Art in Public Places amount. I thought that the intention was to have this before the Super Bowl. I think when the discussion came up, it was more about making sure that there was some art in the city center, and that it would be on display prior to our Super Bowl activity. So if that is still what you would want to do, I don't know that the Art in Public Places ordinance, yes, it may be in effect, but I don't know that a project would get to site plan approval by that time in order to receive the funding to fund that. So those were just my comments on that.
Board Member Harris?
Did anybody from the CAC or the executive director reach out to Jackie to see if her prices were negotiable?
Well, based on the workshop, I think the communication from the board was give us your best price and tell us what it would cost. I had not reached out to negotiate since then. The numbers that were presented to us by them since the workshop is what you have before you today. So we have not talked about a negotiated price for this. I thought that the artists, given the conversation and discussion that was had, would come back with their best number.
Board Member James?
Sorry. What is our negotiated price so we can either move forward with this, because it was the consensus to try and have this done before the Super Bowl. So what is a negotiated price that we are willing to pay, number one? Number two, I would want to make sure that this artist is well-versed in more than a one-story building, because her work is beautiful. I asked to see proposals versus, what the project came looking like, and I was impressed with that. But I would like to see if they have experience in this scale of a building. And at the worst case scenario, I don't want to rush anything because the Super Bowl is coming. So if this isn't the right fit at this time, maybe we can just table it at this time, because the last thing I want to do is just feel like, okay, well, it's $85,000. Okay, well, we already have an unbalanced budget. Okay, well, what's a priority? What's not a priority? And we just rush something through. So if you all want to table it, maybe we can table it versus deciding right now what's a negotiated price and everything else and what we would want. We can maybe bring that up at another meeting.
I'd be fine with tabling it. I think I'd like to see what happens with the budget as well. I think that would make the most sense.
I'm on board with that. Seems reasonable.
Me too.
Okay, so do we need a motion or no? Okay. Okay, board member comments.
I'm going to pass.
Okay. Board member Harris?
I'm going to pass.
Board member James? Vice chair? I'll pass as well. No information items. So we'll come back to the issue that we were discussing. We need to take a break. It'd be nice to take a break for a change. And we have 20 minutes, so, I mean, would somebody like to propose something, or else I will, so, Vice Chair?
Oh, you were going to propose?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I was trying to get to the point of greatest compromise, which was to allow for us to discuss this later, but to have more time between the workshops. I don't think a small adjournment in between is going to be quite enough, and I want to go with the director's recommendation of having them be, two separate entities. Now, how we accomplish that on the small time frame that we have is going to be challenging, and may mean that we have to do this on off hours, but if we can somehow pull that off, I would like to hear your thoughts, Chair.
Oh, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. This is my concern. My concern is that if we do a separate meeting and we do it at different times, I mean, I'll do it. I don't have a problem with that. I just want to make sure that the people that we need to be there are there, because it needs to be the same group of people both places. Why? Not just this group of people, but city people as well, because the whole point is to work as a team and try to figure out a way to get this balanced. And I think it can be done. I really do. I have a lot of hope in the fact that it can be done. And I just don't know that everybody else is going to be able to do that as well.
Would it make sense for us to have?
Can I say something?
So since we would have to confer with city staff, to have Christine or to have the director, I don't know, tomorrow, poll the board for,
Well, that's what I was suggesting, is that we go tomorrow morning. If we could go a little earlier tomorrow, I'm more than willing to go a little earlier tomorrow. I don't know if anybody else can do that. I know you have your light on. I'm not sure if you're next. Actually, no. Yes, you are next.
I have a question for Nikki. I want to know, because I think what's getting lost here is that if we amended it with the allocation, if we approved it with the allocation, you have until October to amend the budget. You don't have to force these workshops in.
Yeah.
Is that not, when is the latest that we could amend the budget if we approved it with the CRA?
If you approve it tonight with the CRA, with the indication that you're going to go ahead and fund the 467,000 shortfall with reserves,
Okay.
you can amend that budget anytime after that. So you can amend it
That's what I'm
tomorrow,
saying.
you can amend it
Next week?
next week, but it does have to be amended. And
Right.
it would have to be amended at a CRA meeting.
Correct.
So you would have to call a special CRA meeting or do it on a regular meeting to
Correct.
amend that budget. Ideally, though, mind you, we have to publish our ad after the meeting on Thursday night. So if you're going to make any final adjustments, I would do it between that meeting and the 23rd meeting, our second public hearing, so that when you
Right.
adopt your city budget is
Correct.
complete and whole.
Correct. So what you said,
But
what I
there's
was trying
nothing
to
to
get to, so we really have until the 23rd to be able to workshop until we can come up to what, everybody's questions answered. So it's not just one day or 2 days to where we have to fit all of this stuff in. It can go over to next week if we had more additional questions. And of course, we're going to workshop all of this stuff in. We don't know how tomorrow's going to work out. We may be able to do everything. We may be able to only do one thing. We may be able to only do half of a thing. But I just don't want, it sounded like we felt like our hands were tied if this was approved, that we could not amend it after Thursday. And that's not true. That's not the case.
This is my concern. I have a couple of concerns. That would be to set a meeting to adopt it. that's not going to be the time to workshop it. We would also need time to workshop it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm still really not comfortable with adopting a budget that is $500,000 in the red. That's going down a slippery slope, I think. Because there's the potential that we end up going through workshopping and we can't seem to get anybody to agree, and we end up still having to fund $500,000.
It can happen anytime.
It could happen anytime, I agree.
Right, so-
But my concern, this is, the city presented us a budget like a month in advance, okay? We had plenty of time to go through it, plenty of time to meet with people, plenty of time to go over everything and ask all the questions we wanted. We've had multiple workshops, or having multiple workshops on that city budget. That budget's balanced. That one, there is not an issue there of having to take money out of reserves, yet there's all of these questions. Now, this budget is $500,000 with a deficit of $500,000. And it seems like there aren't a whole lot of questions about that, and that really concerns me. And my concern is that we need to look at this closely and figure out ways to not have that happen. And again, I want to make sure that we're having an opportunity, a fair opportunity, to examine this budget in the same way that the city budget is being examined. It's especially given the deficit. That's the concern. And my worry is that if we adopt it now, it may turn out that we are stuck with this. And it's not a good precedent to set. It's not, I mean, there's other things that I want to talk about tomorrow having to do with the city budget. I'm not going to talk about here that also have been done that are concerning to me, that I think we need to revisit and take a look at the way that we're spending some of the money. And I just don't want to start going down that road. And to me, I think it would make more sense. And I mean, we can look at calendars right now and see who's available when but we need to make sure that everybody's available. And I'm not just saying us. I'm talking about city staff that needs to be present to answer questions as well, to see if there's a way that we can do this. And I don't know what everybody's schedule is right now, if they're going to be able to do that. So my thought is, if there is any way that we could just get this done tomorrow, if we could make the effort to try to be concise and get to our points. I will do my best to cut mine down as much as I can. I'll work on it again tonight to make sure I can cut down my questions and make it as simple as possible. And I would just ask the same of everybody, so that if we could come in a little earlier tomorrow or stay a little longer tomorrow, either one would be fine. And then maybe we can get this all done in a couple of hours and be finished with it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all.
Well, I agree with you. Can we get our schedules out and
We can get our
start
schedules out, but-
working on it and see if, I have to take, hi Milo, I have to take that kid to school in the morning, so earlier is not something I could do by more than 30 minutes, but I can stay all day long
When is that, tomorrow?
for tomorrow. Thursday, I have more flexibility, but I know that doesn't do us as much good.
I have an appointment in the afternoon that I can cancel tomorrow, so
Okay.
I can be
Do
here.
all day tomorrow.
I can be here all day tomorrow. Anybody else?
I can't be here all day tomorrow. I can stay 1 o'clock the latest, so that would be 10:30 in the morning till 1, but I can't stay all day.
Could we start at 10? Would you be able to start at 10?
It depends on how my first meeting goes, because, hold on, let me get back on my schedule back up.
Can you
Is
stay
it
to
Yeah,
1:30?
I have a 9 o'clock meeting.
Can you stay to 1:30?
Excuse me?
Can you stay to 1:30?
What is your what do y'all
Yeah.
schedules look like? I mean,
I can,
My schedule's 10:30. That's all I
Yeah.
put in there.
yeah, so-
For this.
But
Well,
I
it
can
has to start
stay
at
later,
10:30.
but I'm not coming earlier.
I mean, I think 10:30 to 1, I would think we could knock this out in 2.5 hours, I would hope.
I agree.
We can try, but we need a backup plan in case that doesn't work. Or you have,
Chair Llewellyn, so if you are looking at 10:30 to 1, what would be the time slot for the CRA's discussion?
Well, I guess we would just continue with the city budget, and then when we're done with that, we'll move into the CRA right from there.
Oh, that's the city's budget.
Or we could start with, I don't, it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know that it makes a difference. Is it good, Nikki, do you think it would make a difference?
But to the director, it made a difference, and that's why that
Okay.
face, it made a difference.
Since you're going to be calling a separate meeting of,
Well, it's-
if you intend to do that, a separate meeting of the CRA as a CRA budget workshop, what I would recommend is advertising it as a CRA budget workshop immediately following the city commission workshop. That way, as soon as you're done with your city meeting, you could go right into the CRA workshop.
But I want to allocate and promise time to the CRA. I don't want her to say, oh, well, heck, it's 12:30, so guess what? You got 30 minutes. That's not
Well,
the
that's
right
really
way.
going to be based on what the commission decides to
We had
do.
originally allocated, what, 10:30 to 12 for the city?
I don't think there was a, I mean,
To 11:30?
it's an open meeting.
Okay, so if it was 10:30 to 11:30, then the intent was to be done within an hour. Okay, so it was 10:30 to 12. Could you do 12 to 1?
Yes,
Okay, so then if we can do it that way, and then, you know, we'll do the best we can, and if for some reason we can't, and I don't think it would be a lot more time after that, I'm hoping,
So you want to start at 12, Mayor?
for the
Or do you
CRA
mean-
budget
Huh?
meeting. We're still starting at 10:30 for the city.
No, I know, until 12 noon,
Right.
is what you said, but then are you going to start right away at
As soon
12
as we're
noon?
done. Yeah, as soon as we're done. Yeah, maybe take 2
We're
minutes.
guaranteeing her that time.
From 12 to 1.
Can we advertise it at CRA workshop starts at 12?
Tom?
That's okay.
I think so.
Yes, set time.
That'd be
Okay,
okay?
and, okay, and then you also, if you're going to do that as a workshop and adopt the budget afterwards, you need to set your special
We could do
CRA
that.
meeting.
We can do that. I think we can do that tomorrow. I don't think that's a problem. I think we could do that tomorrow. We'll figure it out then. Let's just see if we can get through this tomorrow.
well, if there's going to be a special meeting, we have to notice it. So
Right. And we will do it, we'll be able to do that.
you want to notice it the same day?
No, we're
So
not
we would
saying
need
that.
to notice it now?
We don't need to notice it now.
Thursday.
Okay, so if we are having a special meeting tomorrow, we would need to notice the special meeting.
And Tom can handle that. Right?
So Tom would notice it on the same day?
Yeah, we did. It's been done before.
I don't think that's
I
going to
think,
work.
Raquel, I think what they're intending to do is workshop it tomorrow, which he will
workshop.
notice for tomorrow, today, tonight, whenever,
Notice it
reasonable
right
notice.
now.
So, and then set the actual CRA special meeting after that, which could be tomorrow or it could be Thursday. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. It doesn't have to be Wednesday. It can be Thursday as well.
Okay, I just want to make sure if we're going to have a special meeting tomorrow, I think, you know,
Workshop, special workshop.
we're going to have a workshop, but if the special meeting is tomorrow, I think reasonable notice would be.
Reasonable is interpreted by different people.
Yeah, we
What-
need to interpret that.
What is
more.
reasonable?
I
We need
don't
to
think
interpret
that's
it.
reasonable
I-
notice for
Me
our
either.
people. That's
Well,
terrible.
We need consensus. I think we need consensus on what is reasonable and what we are going to give the public.
Me too.
I think we need to all agree on
You
it.
you can hold your special CRA meeting to actually adopt the budget right before you hold the city public hearing as well. As long as there's a consensus when you leave tomorrow where you're going, what direction you're going to be taking with the budget,
Won't it be a shame if we're not?
since it affects the city's budget.
Both. We're concerned about both. Okay, so do we have consensus that this is reasonable enough to let people know that there's a workshop tomorrow from 12 to 1? We need to get it done.
Yes.
Yes.
For the workshop, yes.
Workshop, yes.
Reasonable.
Okay, not the special meeting.
So,
The special meeting, I would say 24 hours is probably sufficient.
So
Agreed?
Thursday.
Right, so if we can identify tomorrow, we can have it noticed tomorrow.
so that will give a day, and that seems, to me, reasonable. A day.
Can we project that out? Because, I want to make sure that you're available, but I also have meetings for
Oh, okay.
Wednesday and Thursday also. Some of them can be moved and canceled. Some of them are longstanding and have multiple parties.
What time is good for you?
On Thursday, 2:30. 2:30 on
2:30.
Thursday.
3 o'clock's better for me.
I'm also available at 3 o'clock on Thursday.
3 o'clock's better for me. 3 o'clock, Thursday, the plan? Does that work, for everybody?
So
There you
we'll have
go.
3 and 5, right?
Yes.
The mayor?
Is that
Go ahead.
I can't stay.
Stop. She's trying to speak.
Sorry, Siri's talking.
Siri, you're interrupting. Please stop.
You're up here.
Thursday, it's okay as long as it's not a long meeting. It can't be a long meeting.
Presumably, we'll have everything worked out tomorrow,
yeah.
and then Thursday, we can come back, and it'll be a very quick meeting. 3
If
o'clock.
that's what it is, then yes, but
Okay, so that's what we'll plan. Okay, and if something happens, we will definitely know by tomorrow. Okay? All right, with that, we're adjourned. Let's come back, 7:05.
It's 7:30.
Okay.
And then.
7:05 we will
12:30
return.
second meeting tomorrow, right? And then Thursday, 3 o'clock and 5:01. 4 meetings in 2 days, and you don't call that rushing it? I think it's horrible for the people. I hope they get all new commissioners. Really, that's horrible.